Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise today in support of my amendment, which would restrict taxpayer funds from being used to finalize any rule or regulation that has resulted in or is likely to result in an annual effect on the economy of $100 million or more at the Department of Agriculture. During his first 2 years in office, the President added more than $300 billion in new regulatory costs to the economy. The American Action Forum found that the new rules in his first 2 years required 193 million hours of compliance paperwork, 193 million hours to comply with new regulations from nameless, faceless bureaucrats. This common sense proposal would restrict any major regulatory actions from USDA from going into effect without the approval of Congress beforehand. Our farmers and ranchers across the country have enough to deal with, including natural disasters, market conditions, increasing input costs, trade issues, the list goes on. Our nation's farmers and ranchers and producers should not have to worry about the ever-changing environment in Washington with regard to regulations. Moreover, these costly regulations ultimately harm consumers who end up paying a higher price for their food, fiber, and fuel. These days, these major rules and regulations are simply a way for agencies to circumvent Congress on major policy decisions to implement the political will of whatever party is in office at the time. As the nation's legislative body, we must reassert our constitutional role and prevent regulatory overreach. It doesn't matter if there's a Republican or a Democrat in the White House. The American people should not be burdened by and forced to pay for the overreaching regulations that are rooted in nothing more than a political agenda. Again, I want to encourage all my colleagues to support this amendment to protect our nation's farmers and ranchers and to prevent overreach. We certainly can cut spending. Lord knows we need to. But until we change the way that we do business here in Washington, and this amendment does that, we will not change a thing. I urge passage of this amendment, and I reserve, Madam Speaker.